Lightning flashed across the New York skyline, illuminating a scene that felt torn straight from a nightmare. Elaine Carter, pregnant and trembling, pressed her back against the hallway wall of her husband's opulent penthouse. In her ears pounded a single phrase: he's with her. Right now. The baby inside her gave a fierce kick, as if warning her not to step forward, but she couldn't stop. She approached the half-open bedroom door, silent tears streaming down her cheeks. The hush was deceptive, broken only by muted whispers and the rustle of sheets. This was the master suite she'd meticulously decorated, from the satin curtains to the plush velvet rug, a sanctuary meant for a loving couple. Now it felt like a viper's nest. One more shaky step, then she saw them. Graham Carter, her husband of 3 years, and her best friend since college, Selena Perez, entangled in betrayal. Graham's expression twisted from pleasure to pure horror the moment he noticed Elaine's reflection in the vanity mirror. Selena scrambled, silk sheets tangling around her, the million-dollar penthouse, the swirl of city lights outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. None of it mattered anymore. Elaine's breath caught in her throat. She let out a ragged sob that drowned in the hush. No one moved. Even the night seemed to hold its breath. Only seconds passed, but in that suspended time, Elaine felt her entire life's foundation quake. Selena's eyes darted, half-naked body trembling in the dim glow of the bedside lamp. Graham looked like he'd been slapped by reality. But no one dared speak first. Elaine felt her knees weaken, the emotional impact colliding with her physical state. She was 7 months pregnant, the shape of her unborn child visible beneath her loose-fitting coat. With shaking fingers, she touched on her belly as if seeking comfort from the life that still needed her. Betrayal scorched every corner of her soul. How could two people she loved most commit this atrocity? Silence shattered when Graham lurched from the bed, stammering half-words. Elaine spun away, tears blurring her vision. She nearly fell into the gilded hallway console, gripping its marble edge for balance. Her heart hammered like a prisoner trying to break free. She needed to run anywhere but here. Selena's voice squeaked out an apology, but it only stoked Elaine's fury. She bolted, ignoring Graham's frantic pleas. The elevator doors opened like the jaws of a beast swallowing her whole. The instant it sealed shut, she realized a single truth. Her marriage, her closest friendship, her sense of self destroyed in one catastrophic moment. The elevator whisked her down from the penthouse of illusions to cold reality below. And as she pressed her hand protectively against her abdomen, she sensed that the worst was yet to come. This raw betrayal was only the opening shot in a battle that threatened not only her sanity, but also the future of her child. 6 months earlier, no one in Manhattan social circles could have predicted that Elaine Carter would become tabloid fodder for heartbreak. Back then, she was the picture of a devoted wife smiling politely at fundraising galas and black-tie dinners. She'd stand beside Graham Carter, the self-made billionaire whose investments in renewable energy had propelled him to the top echelons of high society. And at nearly every event, Selena Perez floated in the background, her vivacious laughter, her bright smile, her unwavering loyalty to Elaine. Or so it seemed. Elaine's pregnancy announcement had lit up the tabloids a few months ago. Photos of her and Graham holding hands outside a private hospital soared across social media. People whispered about the golden couple, adding a new heir to the Carter fortune. For Elaine, it felt like a long-awaited blessing. She'd struggled with fertility treatments for over a year, enduring needle pricks and hormone swings, each attempt forging her determination deeper. When the test finally read positive, her joy was immeasurable. But behind that perfect public image, cracks formed in the facade. Graham's overnight business trips grew suspiciously frequent, and his phone never left his side. Elaine would catch glimpses of cryptic text messages, names saved under random initials, or times he'd walk out of a room to answer calls. When she questioned him, he brushed her off. "It's a critical conference call." "Darling, a CFO in Hong Kong. You wouldn't want me to lose that account, right?" Then there was Selena. She'd become almost too present in Elaine's life. At first, Elaine was thankful. Pregnancy drained her energy, and Selena volunteered to do everything from grocery runs to organizing baby shower details. She even stayed in the penthouse guest suite on some weekends, claiming it was to help Elaine with morning sickness. Back in college, Selena had been Elaine's protective big sister figure, guarding her from heartbreak, coaching her through breakups. It made sense for her to be this involved now, or so Elaine believed. One evening, Elaine noticed a strange tension between Selena and Graham. A fleeting look passed between them when they thought she wasn't watching something electric, like a secret forcibly contained. She shrugged it off. Perhaps they'd argued about party logistics. She had no idea how deep that secret ran. Worse yet, Elaine's in-laws, the Carters, never fully accepted her. They saw her as middle-class background unworthy of the Carter name. At dinner parties, they'd shower Graham with praise while Elaine sat quietly sipping water to ease her nausea. Whenever Elaine tried to interject, someone cut her off, changing the subject to business expansions or corporate philanthropy. She felt invisible, like an accessory on Graham's arm. All these moments piled up in her chest like kindling on a hidden fire. She wanted to trust her husband and her best friend. She wanted to protect the precious life growing inside her. But something felt wrong. Intuition she couldn't ignore. She had no clue that the injustice had only begun, and the real blow, the ultimate betrayal, was already unfolding behind the scenes. Elaine's sense of isolation intensified at every turn. The Carter family patriarch Albert Carter presided over Sunday luncheons with a thin-lipped disapproval. He asked probing questions about Elaine's background and her mother's side of the family. Despite Graham's attempts at civility, Father Elaine's heritage doesn't define her contributions. It was clear that Albert believed money equaled worth, and in his eyes, Elaine was negligible. Meanwhile, Harriet Friedman, an old family acquaintance, quietly observed the tensions. Harriet's role in Carter Enterprises was small. She managed philanthropic outreach programs, but she had a knack for blending into the background and noticing details others missed. She'd caught Elaine's uneasy glances, the forced laughter at business dinners, the momentary grief in Elaine's eyes whenever Graham stepped away to take a work call. Harriet suspected a storm was coming, but she didn't speak up. Not yet. Selena, ironically, was the only one who appeared to listen. She'd drop by with fresh smoothies and check on Elaine's morning sickness. She'd chat softly about potential baby names, flipping through magazines for nursery decor ideas. Elaine tried to be grateful. It's so wonderful to have a best friend who cares this much, but an undercurrent of anxiety kept Elaine from fully relaxing. There were times she'd catch Selena looking at her with an intensity that felt more like guilt than concern. It didn't help that the city's press was glued to the Carters. Graham's green energy startup had just announced a major merger, catapulting him into billionaire status, cementing the family's public image as unstoppable. Elaine found herself thrust into a spotlight she never wanted. Reporters asked personal questions about her upbringing, her personality, and her future child's inheritance. She felt like a chess piece moved around to showcase the Carter brand. If she hesitated to attend a function, Albert Carter would remind her that public perception matters and that the Carter legacy is bigger than any single member. She hated how powerless she felt. One day, Elaine discovered a series of questionable receipts in Graham's study drawer. Intimate dinners at exclusive restaurants on nights he claimed to be out of town. Instead of confronting him immediately, she confided in Selena. "Could these be from a client meeting?" Elaine asked, voice trembling. "He said he was in Boston, but these receipts are from a French bistro here in Manhattan." Selena's eyes flickered. She placed a hand on Elaine's shoulder. "You know how Graham is always entertaining potential investors? Maybe it's not official enough to mention." The explanation rang hollow, but Elaine tried to believe it. She wanted to preserve hope, especially for the baby's sake. Yet that night, Elaine dreamed of a faceless woman leaning into Graham at a candlelit table, whispering secrets. She jolted awake, heart hammering, sweat beading her brow. She glanced at the empty side of the bed. He hadn't come home yet. In that moment, she realized something was dreadfully amiss. The world around her was forging an injustice so profound she could scarcely comprehend its depth. She felt like a lamb being led to slaughter, but she told herself everything would be fine. The truth, however, was far darker. In the weeks leading up to the meltdown, Elaine tried to reclaim some semblance of control. She immersed herself in organizing a high-profile charity fundraiser for children's art programs, an event that could showcase her own talents. Painting had always been her passion. Before meeting Graham, she dreamed of opening her own gallery. Now she channeled that aspiration into philanthropic work, hoping to prove her worth to the Carter family. The fundraiser's theme, New Beginnings, perfectly matched Elaine's personal hopes for motherhood and her desire to feel valued. Harriet Friedman lent a hand helping Elaine connect with local artists. The two women bonded over after-hours coffee, discussing art pieces and event logistics. Harriet, noticing Elaine's subdued spirit, gently asked if she was all right. Elaine, unsure whether Harriet was truly on her side, brushed it off with forced optimism. Meanwhile, Selena's presence in the penthouse grew. She justified each visit as helping Elaine set up for the baby or supporting the fundraiser's marketing. At times, Graham would return from work to find both women in the living room discussing decor or drafting invitations. He'd smile politely but avoided direct eye contact with Selena. Elaine tried to read his expression. Was it guilt or was it annoyance? She couldn't tell. Late one evening while finalizing the guest list, Elaine noticed a short text message pop up on Selena's phone, which was lying face up on the coffee table. The sender's name was Just G. The preview read, "We need to talk." Elaine froze G. Her heart hammered. She glanced up to see Selena's face go white. Selena snatched her phone, mumbled an excuse, and hurried to the bathroom. Elaine sat paralyzed, mind racing. Could G be Graham? Or is that just a coincidence? She suppressed a rising wave of dread, reminding herself that suspicion without proof could destroy friendships. Yet her gut twisted violently. The next day, she pulled Graham aside to ask if Selena had confided anything. He brushed her off. "I'm juggling a billion-dollar merger, Elaine. I don't have time for gossip." She tried again, pushing the receipts in front of him. He barely glanced at them. "I travel constantly. My executives sometimes use my card. Don't read too much into it." Then he walked away, leaving her feeling small and irrelevant. Every alarm bell in Elaine's head blared. But whenever she contemplated calling him out, she imagined the consequences: confrontation, scandal, more tension that could jeopardize her pregnancy. Desperate to keep her unborn child's future stable, she clung to denial like a lifeline. On the night of the charity event, Elaine mustered a radiant smile as she greeted donors. Cameras flashed, capturing her glowing figure in a rose-colored gown. Graham arrived late, offering a perfunctory kiss on her cheek. Selena hovered near the silent auction table. Harriet Friedman watched from the corner, her face etched with concern. Beneath the glamour of the fundraiser, an ominous current pulsed. Elaine could sense the betrayal was near, but she still believed that if she showed enough grace, enough love, maybe everything would sort itself out. Little did she know that illusion was about to be shattered in the most brutal way possible. Long before Elaine met Graham Carter, he was a gritty entrepreneur in the Bronx, with nothing but ambition. He hustled through college on scholarships, working nights at a shipping dock. The drive that propelled him to billionaire status also carved out a certain ruthlessness. When the media called him a financial prodigy, they only saw the polished surface. Few knew his deeper desperation to bury any trace of his humble upbringing. In quiet moments, Elaine sometimes wondered if Graham's obsession with success was a reaction to childhood wounds. He rarely spoke about his parents or the cramped apartment where he grew up. When he did, his eyes would glaze over as if shutting a door on painful memories. The Carter name he carried was something he crafted for himself. He'd legally changed it from a simpler last name in an effort to appear more refined in business circles. That hidden piece of Graham's past emerged unexpectedly. One day when Harriet Friedman, rummaging through old philanthropic archives, stumbled on a scholarship registry, she recognized the birth name associated with Graham. Confused, she cross-referenced it with Carter Enterprises' founding documents. Harriet discovered that Graham systematically erased ties to a father who'd been incarcerated for fraud. The hush-hush nature of it indicated that Graham would do anything to protect his curated image. Harriet's intent wasn't malicious. She respected Elaine and felt a growing empathy toward her. But the deeper Harriet dug, the more she sensed that if Graham's secrets ever surfaced, it might topple his empire. She also realized this might explain why Graham clung to wealth and power with such ferocity, perhaps even fueling his unscrupulous actions. Meanwhile, Elaine knew only fragments of this story. Graham told her about a difficult childhood, but never the specifics. He'd hinted at betrayal by a father figure, something that fueled his unstoppable work ethic. Elaine empathized. She believed that the worst was behind him, and that together they could build a future free from past shadows. She never expected that those shadows might also warp his sense of morality. That night at the charity event, Harriet, holding on to her discovery, debated whether to approach Elaine. But the glitz of the evening distracted everyone, including Harriet herself. She decided to keep quiet, fearing that revealing Graham's concealed identity might do more harm than good, especially to Elaine, who was visibly stressed and heavily pregnant. Harriet reasoned that the best time to speak up would be after the fundraiser in a calmer setting. But the window for a calm disclosure was closing fast. Graham's unresolved past connected to his current double life. In some twisted way, his fear of losing control, of ever reverting to the poor, nobody he once was, fueled his secrecy with Selena. If Elaine found out he'd lied about business or finances, it might unravel the entire facade he'd worked so hard to build. As the fundraiser concluded that evening, Elaine beamed at the success of raising thousands of dollars for children's art programs. She felt a fleeting sense of victory. Little did she know that beyond the smiling faces and polite applause, two separate storms were gathering. one linked to Graham's hidden past and one directly inside her own home. While Elaine believed Selena Perez was just a loyal friend from college, Selena's backstory hid layers of desperation. Raised in a cramped Los Angeles apartment by an ailing mother, Selena learned early that money was power. She hustled through scholarships and part-time jobs, crossing paths with Elaine in an intro to design class at a mid-tier university. They became close when Elaine consoled Selena after a failed exam, a moment that cemented their sisters for life bond. But Selena's ambitions ran deeper. She didn't just want a comfortable life, she craved validation and security she'd never had. Elaine was bright, naive, and warm-hearted, a stark contrast to Selena's cunning streak. Over years of friendship, Selena masked her envy under a veneer of support. When Elaine married Graham, Selena secretly marveled at the Carter fortune. She also noticed the cracks in their relationship, how Elaine's gentle nature sometimes clashed with Graham's controlling tendencies. Selena's initial contact with Graham was accidental, so she told herself. She offered to help him organize a surprise for Elaine's birthday. However, they ended up sharing a bottle of wine, the conversation sliding into personal territory. Graham, stressed by work and family pressure, vented about Elaine's idealistic worldview, her emotional vulnerability, her inability to keep up with his pace. Selena soaked it in, carefully feeding him empathy. Over time, she recognized an opportunity. One night, Graham leaned in too close and they kissed. Selena felt a jolt of both guilt and triumph. She convinced herself it was a one-time slip. But as she saw how easy it was to gain Graham's favor, his attention and potentially a slice of his wealth, she rationalized it. I deserve this. She thought Elaine has had everything handed to her. What about me? Soon Selena orchestrated more coincidental encounters. She studied the Carter family dynamics, learning how to present herself as a sophisticated ally. She'd slip out of Elaine's view to take Graham's calls, agreeing to meet him at discreet locations. Each rendezvous chipped away at her conscience, but she believed it was worth it. If Graham ever decided he'd had enough of Elaine, who was pregnant and increasingly anxious, Selena could slide into that role. The mistress could become something more permanent, yet guilt weighed on her. Elaine was Selena's oldest friend, someone who had comforted her in her darkest times. Still, the lure of power and financial stability overshadowed loyalty. For Selena, the biggest fear was getting caught too soon. She needed time to lay the groundwork to ensure she wouldn't be left out in the cold if Graham's marriage imploded. In the last few weeks, Selena sensed that Elaine was growing suspicious. She tried to play it cool, doubling down on her best friend facade, deflecting every hint Elaine threw her way. Meanwhile, Graham became erratic, consumed by worry that someone would piece together the puzzle. That tension built to a breaking point the night Elaine discovered them. Selena, half naked in the bed she'd once heard Elaine gush about Egyptian cotton sheets, the perfect mattress, realized there was no more hiding. Her eyes locked on Elaine's stricken face and regret twisted her gut. She'd gambled everything on this affair, and now the entire deck of cards was tumbling down. Elaine stumbled into a lonely hotel lounge later that night, hours after the shock of finding Selena and Graham together. She couldn't go home, no. That penthouse felt like a crime scene, shivering under the neon bar lights. She ordered a glass of water. The bartender, sensing her distress, offered a sympathetic nod. In her mind, a reel of images flickered. Selena flipping through baby magazines, Graham kissing Elaine's forehead, those suspicious receipts, the bedroom door swinging open to reveal the unthinkable. Her pulse roared with betrayal. How long had they carried on behind her back? Why did they do it now? Especially with her pregnant. She realized all the little moments, those sideways glances. The late-night phone calls had been neon signs she'd chosen to ignore. She felt stupid, humiliated. But beneath the anger lay a deeper fear. Had I done something wrong? Was I not enough? She hated how her mind twisted her heartbreak into self-blame. The baby stirred, reminding her of the life that still depended on her. Through tears, Elaine placed a protective hand on her belly, vowing she wouldn't let this child suffer from the sins of its father. Then her phone buzzed. It was Harriet Friedman, the last person Elaine expected to hear from. Harriet's concerned voice came through. I heard what happened. Please let me help. Confusion gripped Elaine. Harriet was just an acquaintance. Why would she care? But something in Harriet's tone carried genuine warmth. Exhausted and desperate for an ally, Elaine agreed to meet her in the hotel lobby. Minutes later, Harriet appeared, coat draped over her arm. Eyes full of empathy, she guided Elaine to a quiet corner sofa and offered her a tissue. After Elaine recounted the horrifying discovery, Harriet lowered her gaze, confessing, I need to share something about Graham's past, something that might help you decide your next step. She began recounting Graham's old name, his father's legal troubles, and how Graham had built his empire on a foundation of secrecy. Harriet explained that she suspected Graham's fear of losing control drove him to make reckless choices, and it might not end with just an affair. At first, Elaine was too shaken to fully process the revelation, but a new perspective emerged. Graham wasn't just a powerful spouse who cheated. He was someone constantly running from his past, forging illusions to maintain control. His affair might be more about an adrenaline rush, a need to dominate than love. Or perhaps Selena represented an outlet for emotions he'd never confronted. The more Harriet revealed, the more Elaine realized she had to reevaluate everything. She wasn't just a naive wife who'd been cheated on. She was entangled in a man's elaborate web of ambitions, illusions, and manipulations. And Selena, her once trusted friend, had willfully played a part driven by her own thirst for status. Harriet urged Elaine to consider legal counsel immediately. "You need to protect yourself and your child," she insisted. "Graham has resources we can't imagine. He'll try to spin this in his favor." For Elaine, this conversation was a turning point. Through a storm of tears and trembling hands, she understood one thing clearly. She must muster every ounce of strength to confront the formidable duo who'd ripped her life apart. Elaine woke the next morning in a tiny motel room, courtesy of Harriet, who insisted on paying for it so Elaine could hide from paparazzi and from Graham. The relentless ache in her chest had dulled into a throbbing numbness. She stared at the peeling floral wallpaper, trying to reconcile her new reality. Her husband and her best friend had betrayed her. She was pregnant, homeless, and alone. But Harriet's words echoed, "He'll try to spin this." Elaine knew that if Graham felt threatened, he'd use every legal trick to protect his assets and reputation. She had to move fast. She dialed a high-profile divorce attorney. Harriet recommended a woman known for representing scorned spouses of the wealthy. Elaine's hand trembled as she left a voicemail. "My name is Elaine Carter. I need help." Within hours, the attorney, Adele Waterman, called back, her tone brisk but not unkind. "Your situation is time-sensitive," Adele said. "If you have evidence of the affair, bring it. We can secure a temporary restraining order if necessary. Let's meet." Elaine swallowed hard. Evidence, she only had the raw image seared into her mind, but that might be enough in a no-fault state. She gathered the receipts, the text message, glimpses, anything that could prove misconduct. That afternoon, Elaine stepped into Adele's sleek downtown office. Surrounded by chrome fixtures and floor-to-ceiling windows, she felt dwarfed. She recounted the events, her voice trembling at times. Adele's pen moved swiftly over a legal pad. Then she looked up with a clinical, direct gaze. "Your primary concern is securing financial support for yourself and the baby. Given Graham's resources, we can't assume he'll be fair. We'll file for a separation and claim adultery for marital misconduct." Elaine flinched at the word adultery. It sounded so scandalous, yet it was painfully accurate. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks as she envisioned the public fallout. She also dreaded how Graham would react. Furious, dismissive. Would he cut her off entirely, leaving her and the child in dire straits? "Gather any additional proof you can," Adele instructed. "Screenshots, messages, photos, and watch your accounts. Sometimes men in his position freeze or move funds to pressure the spouse." Elaine swallowed, heart pounding. She realized she knew almost nothing about the complexities of Graham's finances. She'd entrusted him with everything. Walking out, she clutched the folder of documents to her chest, feeling exposed. The city streets bustled around her, horns blaring, people rushing. She was just another face in the crowd now. No longer the shining wife of a billionaire, and that was strangely liberating. No more illusions. But the sense of free fall remained. Later that evening, Harriet visited Elaine at the motel, bringing a bag of maternity clothes and vitamins. "I made sure no one followed me," Harriet said gently. She offered to let Elaine stay with her, but Elaine declined, worried that Graham's reach extended far. She needed anonymity until she filed legal motions. Still, Elaine's tears came in waves. She grieved not just the marriage, but the lost friendship with Selena, the baby's chance at a stable family, the life she'd built around illusions. This was her collapse, plunged into darkness. But in the quiet of that cramped motel room, a seed of determination stirred. She would not let them destroy her or the life within her. A small spark of resolve glimmered, waiting for the moment to ignite into a comeback. 2 days later, Elaine switched to another motel after spotting a car she thought belonged to one of Graham's associates. The stress weighed heavily, but she pressed forward. With Adele Waterman's guidance, she'd filed for separation, claiming infidelity, and was preparing the official divorce petition. While waiting for paperwork, She received a call from an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Elaine, the voice was Graham's. She nearly hung up, but he sounded different. His tone was subdued, even regretful. I'm sorry for everything, he said. I need to see you for our child's sake. Elaine's heart clenched. She wanted to yell at him, to cry, to demand how he could do this. Yet her voice came out small. Why I made a terrible mistake. I'll do whatever it takes to make amends, Graham insisted. Let me explain in person. Please, confusion warred with anger. She recalled Adele's warning. Watch out for manipulative moves. He might try to corner you into a disadvantageous agreement. Still, Elaine's longing for closure tugged at her. Maybe he truly regretted it. Maybe he'd see reason and not fight the divorce against her better judgment. She agreed to meet him at a cafe near the edge of town. If anything, she wanted to look him in the eye and ask why he chose Selena over his pregnant wife. When she arrived, she found Graham seated at a corner table, a plain baseball cap pulled low. He looked exhausted. Dark circles lined his eyes. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back. I don't trust you, she said quietly, voice shaking with both fury and heartbreak. Graham sighed, removing the cap. Selena, she manipulated me, he claimed. I was lonely and everything at home revolved around your pregnancy. I felt left out, overshadowed. Elaine recoiled, appalled by the excuse overshadowed. You're the billionaire, Graham. You have all the attention in the world. I was just trying to protect our baby. A flicker of shame crossed his face. I know I messed up. Let me make it right. Come back to the penthouse. Let's keep this out of court. I'll provide for you, for the child, no matter what. Elaine's lips quivered. She recalled Adele's instructions. Don't negotiate alone, yet part of her yearned for stability. She hated living in motels, terrified and uncertain. For a moment, she imagined returning, forging a shaky truce for the baby's sake. But something about Graham's eyes made her suspicious. They lacked genuine remorse. He spoke of provision like she was an employee. Her heart pounded. She decided to test him. Fine. I'll come back under one condition. We see a counselor and you sever contact with Selena immediately. The color drained from Graham's face and she caught a flicker of anger. Counselor, that's not necessary. We can handle it ourselves. Red flags ignited in her mind. In that split second, she realized this was a trap. He wanted her back under his control, likely to manipulate finances and hush the scandal. She stood up abruptly. I'm done, Graham. Furious, he grabbed her wrist. You'll ruin us both, he hissed. Elaine yanked free, stepping away. Her voice, though trembling, rang clear. No, Graham, you ruined everything. She stormed out, tears burning in her eyes, her first wave of regained power overshadowed by the dread that he'd strike back even harder. Elaine had barely left the cafe's parking lot when her phone buzzed again, this time from an unfamiliar local number. Part of her wanted to ignore it, but a grim curiosity compelled her to pick up. A shaky female voice whispered, Elaine, it's... Selena rage flared in Elaine. How dare you call me? She pulled her car to the side of the road, heart pounding so loud she could barely hear Selena's breathing. Please, just listen, Selena pleaded. I never meant to hurt you. Graham told me he wanted a divorce. He said your marriage was a facade. Elaine clenched the steering wheel, the nerve of Selena still playing the victim after everything. She almost hung up, but Selena continued in a trembling tone, I'm pregnant. 3 words that slammed into Elaine's chest like a sledgehammer. Her vision blurred. She had suspected Selena wanted to replace her, but this was worse than any nightmare. Are you lying? Elaine demanded, voice shaking with fury and heartbreak. Why should I believe you? Selena sniffled. I have a test. I don't know what to do. He's ignoring my calls now. He says he wants to fix his marriage with you, but I'm scared. The twisted irony stung Elaine. Selena was reaching out to her, of all people, for help. Elaine pressed a hand to her own pregnant belly, tears flooding her eyes. If Selena was telling the truth, Graham had created an even more devastating tangle. 2 pregnancies, 2 potential heirs, and 1 shattered family. How far does this betrayal go? Elaine wondered. She felt physically ill. Don't call me again. Elaine managed, voice tight with barely contained sobs. Deal with your mess on your own. We're done, she ended the call, her entire body trembling. This was a new wave twist, one that threatened to overshadow her own survival. If Selena carried Graham's child, the divorce battle might become far more complicated. The Carters would fight to protect their lineage, potentially turning on both Elaine and Selena. And if the tabloids got wind of a double pregnancy, the scandal would quadruple. Back at her motel, Elaine collapsed onto the bed, mind spinning. She realized she needed to fortify her legal position. She dialed Adele Waterman, who answered promptly, despite the late hour. "We need to expedite this," Elaine said, voice hollow. "Graham might have fathered another child." The stunned silence on the other end said it all. Adele finally responded, "We'll move forward. Don't panic. He can't legally force you into anything." But the emotional weight pressed heavy, Elaine's anger mixed with pity for Selena. She remembered college nights when they'd talk about future dreams. They were supposed to be unstoppable best friends. How had it come to this tangled betrayal? Despite her rage, Elaine glimpsed Selena's desperation. That moment of compassion felt like a betrayal to herself. She was torn, disgusted by Selena's actions, yet unable to ignore the possibility that both women were now pregnant and alone manipulated by the same powerful man. The next morning, Elaine resolved to not let this revelation paralyze her. She had her own baby to protect. She had a legal war on the horizon. Even as heartbreak weighed her down, she clung to a small spark of resilience. If Selena's news was true, then Graham's empire was heading for a collision he couldn't spin away. And Elaine refused to be a casualty again. The official divorce petition hit Graham Carter like a thunderbolt. Within hours, Elaine received a message from his personal attorney threatening to countersue for defamation if she pursued an adultery-based claim. It didn't rattle Elaine as much as she expected. She had braced for it. What did surprise her was a summons from the Carter family's legal team requesting an urgent family mediation. "What do they want?" Elaine asked Adele, her voice tense. "Most likely they want to control the narrative," Adele explained. "To hush any mention of a second pregnancy or an affair that could tarnish their brand. They might try to bully you into a quiet settlement." Elaine recalled Harriet's warning that the Carters would do anything to keep scandal at bay, but Elaine refused to be silenced. The mediation took place in a sleek downtown tower. Elaine walked in with Adele by her side, shoulders squared despite her trembling nerves. On the opposite end of the conference table sat Graham, his father Albert, and their lawyer. The tension was thick enough to choke on Albert's eyes, bored into Elaine with disdain, as though she was an inconvenience to be managed. Graham looked at her pleadingly, but Elaine's gaze was distant, her jaw set. She could still see his face twisted in pleasure next to Selena's form in the penthouse bed. That memory was an unhealed wound that fueled her resolve. The Carters' lawyer laid out a proposal. Elaine would withdraw the adultery claim, accept a lump sum settlement, and sign an NDA preventing her from publicly disclosing any aspect of the affair. In return, she would receive a generous monthly allowance for her child, plus ownership of a modest townhouse. Elaine glanced at Adele, who shook her head subtly. "Absolutely not," Adele said coolly. "We have enough evidence, including multiple witnesses, that your client has engaged in infidelity and reckless behavior. This isn't about hush money. My client is within her rights to pursue legal recourse." Albert's nostrils flared. "We're being more than fair. She won't get a better deal if this goes public." Elaine felt her fury rise, the gall of them, to reduce her heartbreak and betrayal to a business transaction. She placed a hand protectively over her belly. "I will not be bought," she said quietly. Her voice didn't waver. Graham finally spoke. "Elaine, can we at least handle this privately? For our child's sake." A pang hit her chest. He dared invoke the baby now. She forced herself to remain calm. "If you truly cared," she said, "you wouldn't have destroyed our marriage with my best friend." His face twisted with shame. Albert slammed a fist onto the table. "That's enough." Standing abruptly, he barked at his lawyer to end the session. Graham lingered as though wanting to say more, but his father practically hauled him away. Elaine let out a slow exhale, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Outside in the hallway, Adele turned to her. "They're rattled," she said. "Keep strong. This is a good sign for our case," Elaine nodded, but she couldn't shake the sense that the Carters were just regrouping for a bigger assault. And the specter of Selena's alleged pregnancy loomed. She wondered how that might feed into the confrontation yet to come. One thing was certain, the battle lines were drawn and there was no turning back. Late that night, Elaine paced in her motel room, her phone buzzing incessantly, dozens of missed calls from unknown numbers. She dreaded the possibility that reporters had caught wind of the scandal. At 10 p.m., a text lit her screen. "Meet me at the old library. I have something you need." Elaine's heart pounded. She had no desire to see Selena again, but curiosity gnawed at her. What if Selena had crucial evidence? Despite Adele's cautions about dealing with the mistress directly, Elaine decided to go. She slipped on a hooded coat and hailed a taxi to a quiet, nearly deserted public library. The building was closed, its stone steps dark under a single lamppost. There she found Selena, eyes hollow, arms wrapped around her stomach. She looked thinner, or maybe just more fragile in the gloom. Selena pulled out a small envelope. These are copies of receipts and hotel logs Graham used. He registered under fake names. He told me to keep them hidden, but I'm done covering for him. She shoved the envelope into Elaine's hands, avoiding eye contact. Elaine's suspicion flared. Why would you help me after everything you've done? Tears glistened in Selena's eyes. Because he's cutting me loose. He says the child might not be his. He's threatened to expose me as some gold digger who trapped him. I have no one else. Elaine's stomach twisted. How quickly alliances shifted in this twisted game. She scanned the top paper, clearly showing a reservation under the alias G. Clark tied to Graham's credit card. This could be damning evidence in court. Before Elaine could speak, Selena asked, "Do you hate me?" 1,000 responses leapt to Elaine's mind, from raw fury to heartbreak. Finally, she murmured, "I hate what you did." Selena bowed her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. She whispered a shaky apology, then hurried off, disappearing into the shadows. Elaine was about to leave when Harriet Friedman stepped out from behind a column, startling her. "Harriet." Elaine gasped. Harriet raised her palms. "I'm not following you. I swear I came here to find Selena. I had a hunch she might try to hand over something tonight. We need to talk." In the dim glow of the lamppost, Harriet revealed her own twist. She had discovered more about Graham's father. Albert Carter wasn't just a wealthy magnate. He had a history of making problems vanish, specifically women who threatened the family name. Harriet showed Elaine archived news clippings about an ex-employee who vanished after accusing Albert of corruption. The case went cold. Rumored, hush money was paid, and she was never heard from again. Elaine felt her blood run cold. Were they capable of something worse? Harriet pressed a trembling hand on Elaine's arm. "You must be very careful. If Selena is truly pregnant, they might do anything to keep it under wraps. And if you threaten Graham's reputation, they could come after you too. This isn't just about infidelity, it's about power." Fear and anger fused in Elaine's chest, forging a fierce determination. She realized that this confrontation went beyond personal betrayal. A monstrous machine lurked beneath the Carter empire. She was no longer just fighting for child support or dignity. She was fighting for her safety and that of her unborn baby. She slipped the envelope into her coat pocket, aware that she held a powder keg of evidence, and the Carters wouldn't hesitate to strike if she lit the fuse. The next morning, Elaine handed the envelope of evidence to Adele. Her attorney's eyebrows arched in surprise. "This is gold," Adele remarked, flipping through the receipts. "It ties Graham to multiple clandestine visits. With this, we can push for a more substantial settlement or even a public trial. He'll be forced to settle." Elaine nodded, still haunted by Harriet's warning. Publicly confronting the Carters meant putting a target on her back. But an unexpected escalation arrived in the form of a summons to an emergency press conference. Carter Enterprises had called it presumably to address swirling rumors about marital issues. Adele urged Elaine to avoid it. "They'll spin a narrative. Don't get lured in yet." Elaine felt compelled to go. She was tired of cowering in motel rooms. She arrived at the corporate building's lobby, thronged by reporters. Cameras flashed as Graham and Albert Carter took the podium in a lavishly staged setup. Albert's voice boomed, claiming the family was united that Elaine was unwell and that any rumors of Graham's affair were malicious lies. Graham stood stone-faced, letting his father do the talking. Elaine, standing at the back of the crowd, felt her blood boil. Her unborn child was not a malicious lie. She refused to watch them rewrite her truth. Summoning her courage, she pushed forward until she reached the front row of reporters. Gasps rippled through the press pool as they recognized her. With trembling conviction, Elaine spoke up, voice projecting through the hush. "I'm Elaine Carter, Graham's wife, and everything he's denying is real." A murmur swept the room. Albert tried to cut her off, but she pressed on. "He betrayed me with my best friend. I'm carrying his child, and he's calling me unwell." This is how Carter Enterprises handles honesty. Cameras zoomed in, capturing the shock on Graham's face. He grabbed the mic, attempting damage control. "Elaine, you're confused. Let's talk privately." She shook her head, tears glistening. "No more private lies." Then she pulled out one of the documents Selena had given her, holding it up for the cameras. It revealed Graham's alias, booking at a luxury hotel on a night he'd told the media he was out of the country. Outrage erupted among reporters, bombarding Graham with questions. Albert, livid, snatched to the microphone, barking at security to remove Elaine. But the press was already in a frenzy. Elaine's voice trembled, but held firm. You want to label me unwell, I have proof of your affair. Graham, and if you threaten me again, I will testify in court about every single thing you've done. For a split second, no one moved. A hush spread, then a flurry of shouts and camera flashes. Graham's face betrayed panic. Albert looked ready to explode. Elaine turned on her heel and pushed past the swarm of reporters. She could barely breathe, adrenaline surging through her veins. She knew the Carters wouldn't let this go easily, but for the first time she felt powerful. She had confronted them head-on in public, no less. The moment she stepped outside, a news crew sprinted after her, yelling questions. She ignored them, exhaling a shaky breath. This was the all-out showdown she had dreaded, and it was far from over. The world now knew the Carters' secret, and a line had been crossed that neither side could easily retreat from. The fallout was swift. Tabloids devoured the scandal. Billionaire Carter exposed, affair lies and a pregnant wife. Social media lit up with outrage, sympathy, and speculation about Graham's rumored mistress. Investors questioned Carter Enterprises' ethical standing. Albert Carter's looming business merger teetered, the stock price dipping as controversies mounted. Amid the chaos, Elaine found an unlikely calm. She had moved into Harriet's modest apartment, where Harriet prepared a small guest room with pink floral sheets, perhaps too frilly, but it felt like sanctuary day. By day, Elaine learned to breathe again. She attended prenatal checkups, determined to keep stress from harming her baby. Each sonogram reminded her why she had to keep fighting for this little life that represented hope amidst betrayal. A week after the explosive press conference, Graham surprised Elaine by sending a heartfelt letter. It wasn't an angry rant, rather it was filled with regret. He admitted to his affair with Selena and apologized for publicly slandering her. He wrote that he'd stepped down from certain corporate roles to focus on fixing his personal life. The cynic in Elaine wondered if this was a publicity stunt or a genuine transformation. Yet she felt a flicker of empathy. She remembered how his childhood trauma shaped his desperate need for control. Still, she realized that reconciling with him was no longer in her best interest. She wanted peace, Adele called her soon after. Excited, Graham's new legal team reached out. They're offering a settlement well beyond what we expected, with no NDAs attached. It seems he's finally willing to let you go on your terms. Elaine, tears forming, whispered, "That's all I ever wanted, to be free." Legal negotiations wrapped quickly. In a closed-door session, Elaine signed the final divorce papers. She secured a solid financial arrangement for her child, plus additional funds that could help her start a new life. There was no triumphant handshake, no celebratory dinner. Just a quiet, solemn agreement between two people who had hurt each other deeply, one through betrayal, the other through public exposure. On the way out, Graham stood in the corridor, shoulders slumped. His eyes glistened as he murmured, "I'm sorry, Elaine. I hope someday you can forgive me." A part of her wanted to lash out, but she found the courage to respond softly. "I forgive you for me, not for you." She turned away, heart heavy yet lighter than before. That night, Harriet asked if Elaine felt victorious. Elaine shook her head. "I didn't win by destroying him. I won by choosing my own peace," she said, feeling a strange serenity. News outlets declared the Carters a fractured dynasty, but Elaine no longer cared about headlines. She was no longer a Carter. As her baby's due date neared, Elaine focused on her future. She signed up for an art workshop, considering a small gallery. Once she was ready, she cherished slow mornings, sipping decaf coffee by Harriet's window, letting the city's hum lull her into a gentle acceptance. Yes, her life had been torn apart, but in the wreckage she found a resolve she never knew she possessed. One crisp autumn afternoon, Elaine took a walk along the East River Promenade. Harriet by her side. Elaine's belly had grown, making each step deliberate. Sunlight glinted off the water, and she felt the baby's soft kicks beneath her hand. Together they breathed in the city's pulse, a mixture of car horns, distant laughter, and the rustle of leaves along the walkway. She paused at a railing, staring out at the skyline. The last few months felt both too long and too short, like she'd lived a lifetime of experiences in a tiny span. Harriet gently patted her shoulder. "So what's next?" Elaine exhaled. "I'm going to open that gallery I always dreamed of. I want to showcase emerging artists, maybe offer therapy workshops for women who have gone through trauma." A flicker of excitement danced in Harriet's eyes. "Count me in. I'll help any way I can." Elaine smiled. For the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful, like the city lights ahead were shining just for her. Her phone buzzed, breaking the serene moment. A quick glance revealed a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Selena. I've left the city. I'm so sorry for everything. I pray you'll find happiness. I'm having a girl." Elaine's heartbeat thudded. She closed her eyes, emotions swirling. Pity, anger, sorrow, and a faint sense of relief. Selena had chosen to vanish rather than face more scandal. Perhaps that was her own path to survival. Elaine typed back a short reply. I wish you healing. Then she tucked the phone away, letting the autumn breeze carry away any bitterness. She had learned that forgiveness wasn't about letting people escape consequences. It was about releasing herself from the burden of hate. As the sun dipped lower, Elaine turned to Harriet. I still can't believe how all this happened. Harriet gave a gentle nod. Neither can I. But you spoke your truth when it mattered most. Elaine smiled, tears welling. She gazed down at her belly. Her child would be born into a fractured family, but at least that child would have a strong mother who wouldn't back down under pressure. Then Harriet, almost as an afterthought, said, you know there might be more to Albert Carter's secret dealings. I've heard whispers that an investigator is digging into old hush money cases. Elaine frowned. What does that mean? Harriet shrugged. Might be nothing, but if anything surfaces, it could rock their empire even further. A chill ran through Elaine, reminiscent of that night she learned the Carters' capacity for cover-ups. Part of her wanted to shut the door on that entire chapter, but another part realized this could be a new wave of revelations that might come knocking. She placed a protective hand over her abdomen, feeling her baby shift. If they come for me again, I'll be ready, she said softly. They began walking again, each step symbolizing a move forward. Elaine inhaled the crisp air, letting it fill her lungs with renewed purpose. She was no longer the fragile wife overshadowed by a billionaire spouse. She was a survivor, an artist at heart, a mother on the cusp of a new life. And though her story had reached a tender closing note, an undercurrent told her this was only the end of one chapter.